if you're an African and you've attended service or mass anywhere in Africa, especially if you're from Nigeria, what I'm going to tell you is really going to be a shock. So I've been new to the UK about 3 months, and I decided to go to church today, and everything I saw right from getting into the church, stepping out, it was really surprising. So let me start with number one. You know how it's like in Africa, let's say Nigeria, because I haven't been to other African countries, but of course I always read how like the experience of Africans in churches. So right from stepping into the church, if you don't really get to see that it's a church building, you would not even know that anything is going on inside. No loudspeakers. You know how it's like in Nigeria, you're passing by the street and so many churches, it feels like they're all calling for your attention, like the loud noise. Even if you're not going to church, if you're in your home, you know what it's like when you hear the loudspeakers. I don't know whether it's like a marketing scheme, I really don't know, but it's totally different here because everywhere is totally quiet until you open the door. I don't know whether the buildings in the UK have soundproofs, but you would not know that anything is going on inside. And aside from like the soundproof, which I feel, I don't know, but it's absolutely quiet. Like they don't raise their voices. They're quiet. They're not singing like on top of their voices. Everybody's really like on low key. So number two, somebody comes and she's like, oh, welcome, so happy to see you here. What's your name? I went with my daughter, and my hubby, of course. That's my hubby's church. So of course they know him, so they don't know me. They don't know my daughter. Oh, your baby's so cute. These are white people, and they are so happy to see you in church and all of that. Sometimes I was like just thinking, is it that they don't have anything like, you know how it's like in Nigeria, you go, I'm talking about my own experience in Nigeria. A couple of times I've gone to church and the church wardens, it feels like they have like personal problems. They don't even get to smile at you. They're just like squeezing their face. Okay, that aside, when I got into the church, of course, this is exactly how I dressed. My trousers and my hair. So 3, I got into the church. I noticed that every other person, like most of the ladies there, were also wearing their trousers. 4, most of the ladies there did not cover their hair. In fact, I think just 1 or 2 people who covered their hairs were blacks. So I guess that's like an orientation they brought from their own countries. But all the white people that I saw in church were flying their hair. Some of the guys are even on dreadlocks and all of that. Like some of them made their hair. I'm trying to imagine all of that happening in Nigeria. Matter of fact, there was a time in Nigeria I went to church and I had this handkerchief which I was like planning to put it on my hair during mass. And just while I was about entering the gate of the church, there was this woman who harassed me. Where's your scarf? I said, I'm going to tie. I must tie that. I must tie that scarf before even entering the church building. I'm not talking about like the building. Before entering just the gate. And I was like, but I'm going to tie it once I'm entering the church building. She said, no, if I'm not going to tie it, I shouldn't even bother going in. That aside. So number 5. So, you know, this is a Catholic church. So normally in Nigeria, I was raised as a Catholic. So I went to Catholic schools and all of that. All through my years of being in the Catholic church, I've never seen an altar girl. And I saw that while the priest was walking into the church, he was moving with altar girls. And I was like, altar girls? These guys, I really love how they do their things really differently. I'm somebody who, I love variety. So I really don't like the idea of seeing the same thing over and over again. I don't want to swear, but I don't think there's ever going to be a time where there'll be altar girls. At least maybe, I don't know about other places like the big cities in Nigeria, but where I'm from, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where there'll be altar girls. Okay, next. I think we're on 5 or 6 or so. Okay. So next, I also noticed that the women who were like giving the readings, you know, in the Catholic church, somebody comes, he takes the first, he or she takes the first reading or the second reading, I noticed they weren't wearing like a robe, because in the Catholic Church back in Nigeria, you would always wear a robe and go to the altar to like say the reading. Aside that, you would also tie your scarf very well. So these women who took the readings were wearing their trousers, they didn't tie their hair, and they didn't wear the robes. And I was like, wow, really? These are the guys that brought Catholicism. These British guys, they brought Catholicism to Africa, and they seem to be doing things really quite differently from Africa. Now, next, I also noticed that the gospel, after the gospel was read, the preaching was not long at all. I know how in Africa, like in Nigeria, the preaching can take more than 1 hour. The priest is talking over and over and over. Man, this was as brief as possible. I think like 8 minutes, yeah. He preached for just 8 minutes. And I was like, oh, really? Cool. And after that, I also noticed that there was breakfast, like breakfast, cake, biscuits, and all of that, and tea after service. So it's not like you're here. And then, of course, you get to meet people. They have this, like, I don't know what to call it, like a dining room or something. I think the dining room where people go, you get to meet people, relate with them. Oh, you're new here. What do you do here? How can they assist you? They are very welcoming people. Like, it's really a place to be. The community, like, it's really attractive. The last one, I would not really say it's the experience in church, but this is why it is important to say this last one. So while my hubby and I were on our way to church, we were trying to meet up with time so we won't be late. And there was this guy who was driving really slow ahead of us. And if he wasn't really slow, we would have like been really much ahead. So after we reached a particular point where we needed to like turn, we drove past him, and I noticed, like, I turned to look at him. When I turned to look at him, he looked really sober. He was smoking. Like, we had even noticed already that smoke was coming out like through the window. So my hubby and I were like, he's even smoking and wasting our time and all. We're discussing, and I was saying how it could be that he's really going through like a tough time, of course, or probably maybe his woman just left. Of course, like, there are so many things he could be going through, and you, like, we actually were coming behind, and we're like, oh, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Like, I would just imagine that if we're in Nigeria, most likely you would wind and be like, you them mad, waiting with this one, move now, move now. Not knowing what's going on, you probably don't know what somebody's going through. So I kind of look at it that, okay, let us imagine that we're going to church, and probably we're typical Nigerians in Nigeria. We wind down, like, spoke harsh words to that guy, not knowing what he's going through. Do you think that will have made any sense? Especially probably you're rushing to church, forgetting that all you needed to do was just to be kind to somebody by probably just not overreacting. This is actually the kindness we need in the world. It's not really all about going to church. There's nothing bad about it, but I think it's really important to be kind. For me, kindness is my religion. And that's just that. That's just my experience. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. See you in my next video.